A prominent rabbi points out Isaiah 53:9, which says, "His grave is with the wicked, and his death is with the rich." The suffering servant is buried with the wicked, but the Christian scriptures say that Jesus was buried with the rich and not with the wicked.
I can show you the chapter Isaiah 53 actually says how the suffering servant died, who he died with, and who he was buried with. Isaiah 53 is a beautiful poetry. Like other Hebrew literature, it is filled with synonymous parallelism, which means one idea or content is repeated in successive lines. For example, Psalm 19:1 reads, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork." Heavens and firmament are synonym. So are glory of God and his handiwork. In Isaiah 53, please note these words, in synonymous parallelism, throughout the chapter. Borne, carried, griefs, sorrows, wounded, bruised, transgressions, iniquities, oppressed, afflicted, opened not his mouth, silent, grave, death. These words are synonyms of each other, and they can be used interchangeably. Could you please read these verses, which demonstrate synonymous parallelism?
No problem. Verse 4, "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows." Verse 5, "But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, the chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed." Verse 7, "He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent." Yes, I can see the poetic beauty of the use of synonymous parallelism in this chapter.
But there is another concept of Hebrew poetry, antithetical parallelism, that I want to draw your attention to. Antithetical parallelism provides contrasting thoughts that complete an idea. A good example is found in Ecclesiastes 10:2, "A wise man's heart inclines him to the right, but a fool's heart to the left." A wise man and a fool are antonyms. The opposite courses they take are in contrast. Isaiah 53:9 reads, "And they made his grave with the wicked, but with the rich at his death, because he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth." Please note that grave and death are synonyms, while rich and wicked are in contrast with each other. So, in this verse, we see both a synonymous parallelism and an antithetical parallelism. A riddle is embedded in the poem. The grave, death of the suffering servant, is with the rich, wicked. With the wicked and the rich being contrasted, what do you think the servant's burial should be? Because of his innocence?
I'm convinced that the burial with the rich was the destiny of the innocent servant, who had done no violence, nor was in deceit in his mouth. I'll try my best to explain it to that rabbi.
Actually, there is no ambiguity whatsoever about the death and burial of the innocent servant. Isaiah 53:12 says he poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. The suffering servant died with the wicked sinners, not with the rich. And he was buried in the tomb of the rich. No mistake. Isaiah 53 says the innocent servant died with sinners. Jesus fulfilled the prophecy when he was nailed on the cross between two criminals. Isaiah 53:12 says, "And he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors." When Jesus was nailed on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Jesus was interceding for the transgressors, who he died with, and those who put him to death. The righteous servant suffered a shameful death, but his burial and resurrection were glorious. He was buried with the rich. Isaiah 53:12 says, "I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong." Verse 10 says, "He shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand." How can one, who has been cut out of the land of the living, prolong his days and see his seed? Jesus resurrected from the dead, after 3 days in the tomb. Isaiah 52:13 says, "Behold, my servant shall deal prudently, he shall be exalted and extolled and be very high." Jesus was taken up to heaven. Millions upon millions are serving him. He says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. Come to him today, he has died for your sins and will save you to the end.